Dragged from my husband's funeral, then a stranger changed my life forever. Hey there, beautiful souls. Your support absolutely lights up my world. A quick subscribe would mean everything. It helps me share more heartwarming stories with our amazing community. Here's my promise. I personally respond to every comment because connecting with you is pure joy. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I can't wait to hear from you. Now, let's dive into today's extraordinary tale together. The spring rain had ceased, leaving the cemetery shrouded in that peculiar stillness that follows a storm. Puddles caught fragments of gray sky between the headstones, and the earth exhaled the rich scent of wet soil and awakening grass. Catherine Morgan's heels sank slightly into the softened ground as she stood at the edge of her husband's grave. Her 3-month-old son, Daniel, pressed against her chest like a shield against the world's sudden cruelty. The minister's words floated past her, something about eternal rest, about Michael being in a better place. But how could anywhere be better than here, with her, with their son? The baby's warm weight was the only thing tethering her to this moment, this terrible reality where Michael had been gone for 7 days, 14 hours, and countless minutes that felt like centuries. 32 years old, a heart condition no one knew existed. One moment he'd been laughing at breakfast, kissing her forehead, promising to pick up diapers on his way home. The next, a phone call that shattered everything. Michael had collapsed at his desk and never opened his eyes again. Catherine barely noticed the other mourners beginning their retreat to waiting cars, their soft murmurs of condolence trailing behind them like smoke. The cemetery was emptying, leaving her alone with the fresh earth and the terrible finality of polished granite bearing her husband's name. Then fingers, cold and sharp, dug into her arm. "We need to talk." Patricia Morgan's voice could have cut glass. Catherine turned to find her mother-in-law's face set in harsh lines, lips compressed into something that resembled a wound more than a mouth. Patricia's grip tightened, and Catherine could feel the woman's fury radiating through her black gloves. "Now? Can it wait?" Catherine's voice emerged as barely more than a whisper. "I just buried my husband." "No, it cannot wait." Patricia's words struck like hammer blows. "You need to understand something. The house you're living in, it belonged to my son. The car, his. Everything was his, and now it belongs to his family, his real family." The words hit Catherine like a physical blow. Around them, the remaining mourners had begun to slow, sensing confrontation in the air like the metallic taste that precedes lightning. "I am his family," Catherine managed, though her voice cracked. "Daniel is his son. That remains to be seen." Patricia's smile was a razor's edge. "My son married you after knowing you for only 6 months. You got pregnant almost immediately. How convenient. Now he's gone, and suddenly you think you're entitled to everything he worked for?" Heat flooded Catherine's cheeks, shame and anger warring in her chest as whispers began to ripple through the gathering crowd. "Patricia, please," she breathed, tears spilling freely now. "Not here. Not now." But Patricia wasn't finished. She gestured sharply to 2 men Catherine recognized as Michael's brothers, their faces mirrors of their mother's cold judgment. "Get her out of here. She has no right to be at my son's funeral." "What?" The word tore from Catherine's throat. "You can't be serious." "I'm perfectly serious. You're a gold digger who trapped my son, and I won't have you pretending to grieve for him." The brothers moved forward like shadows given form. Catherine found herself being pulled backward, away from the grave, away from Michael. Daniel began to wail in her arms, his cries piercing the cemetery's false peace. People were staring now, some with pity, others with the hungry fascination of witnesses to someone else's humiliation. Catherine tried to plant her feet, to resist, but grief had hollowed her out, left her weak as paper. "Let her go." The voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Every head turned toward a tall man in an impeccably tailored black suit who stepped forward with measured grace. Silver-haired and sharp-eyed, he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Catherine had noticed him during the service, assuming he was one of Michael's business associates. "This is a family matter." Patricia snapped, though something in her voice had shifted, become less certain. "It doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does." The man's approach was unhurried, deliberate. "My name is William Harrison. I was Michael's mentor and close friend, and I will not stand by and watch his widow be treated this way at his funeral. Patricia's face had gone pale, then flushed red. You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. William's tone remained calm, but now Catherine could hear steel beneath the silk. I understand that you're allowing your grief to turn you into something ugly, and I understand that if you continue this behavior, you'll regret it. Are you threatening me? I'm advising you. William's blue eyes had gone winter cold. Release her now. Something in that tone made the brothers step back as if burned. Catherine stumbled, barely keeping her balance as she clutched Daniel to her chest. William moved to steady her, his hand gentle on her elbow, and for the first time in a week, Catherine felt the presence of genuine kindness. Are you all right? He asked softly. Catherine couldn't trust her voice. She nodded, tears still streaming down her face, her whole body shaking with the aftermath of shock and humiliation. William turned back to Patricia, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute truth. Michael spoke of his wife often. He loved her deeply. He was thrilled about his son. If you cared about your son at all, you would honor his choices, even in death. How dare you? I dare because someone needs to speak the truth. William's voice cut through Patricia's approach like sunlight through storm clouds. Your grief is understandable, but cruelty is not grief. It's cruelty, and Michael would be ashamed of what you're doing right now. Patricia opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, she looked like nothing more than a lost, angry woman who had buried her child. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her remaining sons trailing behind her like reluctant shadows. The other mourners dispersed quickly, embarrassed by what they'd witnessed, until only William and Catherine remained beside the grave, the baby's soft snuffles the only sound in the settling quiet. Thank you, Catherine whispered, the words inadequate for what this stranger had just done for her. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in. You have nothing to thank me for, William said gently. I only did what any decent person should do. I'm only sorry I didn't intervene sooner. He paused, studying her face with concern. May I drive you home? I don't think you should be alone, right? Now. Catherine hesitated, then nodded. She was too exhausted, too emotionally battered to argue. Besides, something in William's manner, the quiet dignity, the genuine care, made her feel safe for the first time in days. William's car was understated elegance, leather seats worn soft with age, classical music playing softly from speakers that whispered rather than announced. As they drove through streets that seemed surreal in their normalcy, he asked gentle questions about Daniel, about her plans. Catherine found herself talking, the words spilling out in the safety of his calm presence. I don't know what I'm going to do, she admitted, watching the world blur past through tears she couldn't seem to stop. Michael and I were renting the house month to month. His life insurance will help for a while, but not forever. And Patricia, she's right that legally, I don't know where I stand with anything. Did Michael have a will? We were planning to make one after Daniel was born. Her voice broke. We never thought we'd need it so soon. William was quiet for a moment, his hands steady on the wheel. Tonight. The house, I suppose, unless Patricia changes the locks. That's not acceptable. William's voice carried the finality of someone making a decision. I have a guest house on my property. It's empty, fully furnished. You and Daniel can stay there as long as you need. Catherine turned to stare at him. Mr. Harrison, I can't accept that. You don't even know me. Please call me William. And you're right, I don't know you well, but I knew Michael. His smile was gentle, touched with sadness. He talked about you constantly, about how you made him laugh, how you saw the best in people, how excited he was to be a father. I know that he loved you more than anything in this world. That's enough for me. Fresh tears spilled down Catherine's cheeks. Why are you being so kind? William glanced at her, and Catherine saw deep sadness in his eyes, the kind that comes from understanding loss too well. Because 30 years ago, I lost my wife suddenly. We had no children, and her family blamed me just as Patricia is blaming you. People I thought were friends turned their backs on me. I had money and position, so I survived. But I never forgot how alone I felt. His voice softened. If I can spare you some of that pain, then I'm going to do it. That first night in William's guest house felt like stepping into another world. The cottage sat on the edge of his estate, surrounded by gardens that whispered with the sound of wind through leaves and the distant murmur of a small fountain. For the first time since Michael's death, Catherine felt like she could breathe without the air cutting her lungs. Over the following weeks, William proved to be far more than a benefactor. He became the friend she desperately needed. He helped Catherine navigate the bewildering legal complexities of Michael's estate, connected her with a lawyer when Patricia attempted to contest the assets, even babysat Daniel one evening so Catherine could attend a grief support group. "You don't have to do all this," Catherine told him one afternoon as they sat in his garden, Daniel sleeping peacefully in his carrier, while butterflies danced among the roses. "I know I don't have to," William replied, his face peaceful in the dappled sunlight. "I want to. You remind me that there's still goodness in the world worth protecting." "I think you're the one who's good," Catherine said softly. William smiled, and for a moment the sadness in his eyes lifted. "We can both be good. That's allowed." As months passed, Catherine slowly began to rebuild her life from the ashes of her grief. The legal matters settled in her favor. Michael had left behind enough assets to ensure she and Daniel would be comfortable. Patricia never apologized, but she retreated, perhaps finally understanding she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Catherine found work as a teacher, returning to the profession she'd trained for before meeting Michael. William helped her find reliable childcare for Daniel, and gradually, her world began to stabilize. But more than the practical help, it was William's friendship that sustained her through the dark months when grief felt like drowning. They shared dinner once a week, sometimes at his main house with its book-lined walls and comfortable furniture, sometimes at the cottage with its view of the gardens. They talked about everything and nothing: literature, music, Michael's memory, William's late wife Margaret, the small miracles of watching Daniel grow. "Do you ever stop missing them?" Catherine asked one evening as autumn painted the garden in shades of gold and crimson. "No," William said honestly, his voice gentle with hard-won wisdom. "But the pain becomes different, softer around the edges. You learn to carry it with grace." "I hope I can do that." "You already are," William assured her. "You're stronger than you know, Catherine." 2 years after Michael's death, Catherine stood in William's garden again, watching as Daniel, now a toddler with his father's dark hair and her smile, chased butterflies through the flower beds. William sat beside her on the old wooden bench, his face peaceful in the late afternoon sun. "I've been thinking," Catherine said quietly, "about moving back to my own place. Daniel and I have been here so long. You've been so generous, but we should probably—" "Stay," William interrupted gently. "Please, unless you want to leave, of course. But if you're doing this because you think you're imposing, you're not. Having you and Daniel here has brought life back to this house, back to me. I'd miss you both terribly if you left." Catherine looked at him, really looked at him. Over 2 years, William had become family in a way she'd never expected. Not a father figure exactly, but something equally important. A steady presence, a source of wisdom and unconditional kindness. "We'd miss you too," she admitted. "Then stay," William said simply, "for as long as you'd like." Daniel came running over, his small hands cupped around something precious. "Grandpa William, look," he said excitedly, opening his palms to reveal flower petals in every shade of pink and white. William's eyes filled with tears at the title, one Daniel had begun using naturally months ago. "Beautiful," he said, admiring the petals with the solemnity such an offering deserved. "Just beautiful." Catherine watched them together and felt, for the first time since Michael's death, something approaching peace. She'd been dragged from her husband's funeral, humiliated and broken. But from that terrible moment had come this unexpected blessing, a friendship that had saved her when she needed it most. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." William looked at her and smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. "Thank you for letting me be part of your family. You and Daniel have given me purpose again. You've taught me that it's never too late for second chances at love. Not romantic love, but the love of family, of chosen bonds, of people who show up for each other when it matters most." As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in watercolors of rose and gold, Catherine realized that grief and grace could exist side by side. That loss could lead to unexpected connection. That sometimes the people who save you are the ones you never saw coming. And that kindness, real, genuine kindness, changes everything. Years later, when Daniel was older, Catherine would tell him about the day of his father's funeral, about the cruelty she'd faced and the stranger who'd stepped in to defend her. And she'd tell him that William Harrison, the man he called Grandpa, was proof that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most and chooses to stay.